I appreciate that. So I know that the title of her speech is Surprises. I don't have anything else to say in terms of her introduction, except that on a personal note, I have the greatest respect for her, and I'm confident that it's going to be an incredible presentation. So with Surprises, please take it away, Pamela Benjamin.
Thank you. Good evening, OP, friends and guests. I'm going to talk to you about surprises. See, I'm a planner. I really like to think about the things that are coming down the road. I started planning for a triathlon almost 4 years ago, and I've worked on endurance with biking, swimming, and running for all these different events. But ladies and gentlemen, when it finally came to race day, when it finally happened after 2 deferments because of COVID, there were some surprises. Yes, there were some surprises. And I'd like to tell you some of the surprises along my journey on that epic day, April 11th, 2021, a day that burned in my mind for over 2 years as the date kept getting moved out 6 months, then 6 months, and then 6 months. My surprises. First off, I am from Chicago. If you're from Chicago, there is no salt water anywhere near you. You swim in the Great Lakes. Now, they're not the best with the EPA and etc., but they're pretty good. See, ladies and gentlemen, I really never was an out and open water swimmer. I was a pool swimmer. So when I signed up to do the Galveston Half Ironman, I knew I'd be swimming in the bay that connects to the Gulf of Mexico. And the Gulf of Mexico has a lot of animals and fish that they don't have in the Great Lakes. So what do you think was at the top of my mind the last 2 years? Yes, I was preparing for what I would do when I came across this creature. And my strategy was not to be the front or the back of the pack, to stay right in the middle, because it would take a while to get to me if I was in the middle of the pack. As I was driving down, I thought to myself, I'll listen to a podcast on triathlon, specifically the Ironman Texas that's about to happen. I learned all these specific nuances of the race. But one thing the broadcaster spoke about that I had never thought about was that we would be jumping off of piers. Piers. They don't have those in Chicago. And they do, nobody jumps off of them. Well, ladies and gentlemen, when I got to Galveston, this is what the pier looked like. So for 3 days, I was looking at the pier, wondering how in the world I was going to jump off of the pier. And suddenly, that shark was the least of my concern. Yes. So for 3 days, I stopped worried about the shark and I worried about the pier, because the Ironman said that if you jump off that 10-foot pier, your goggles kind of get messed up and they go flying off your head. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what the pier looked like. It was about a 3-foot drop. My goggles didn't come off. No, they didn't come off. They stayed on. I tied them super duper tight. I thought my eyes were going to bug out, but they stayed on. And I didn't meet one shark the whole time. But I did make a friend. Yes, I met a kind stranger. You might say, swimming out there, you met a friend? I met a friend. But let me first explain the background of where my friend and I were. You see, this is the swimming course. You see this little green spot right there? That's where we jump off. That's the little 2 to 3 foot little drop into the bay, golfish kind of area. And then you swim down, and then you turn, and then you swim up, which is okay. I have no problem with that. But what I learned is that you're swimming into the waves. You're swimming into all of that motion coming at you. So let me tell you, I was flying going down, but I was really chugging hard going up. And halfway between that line going up, I made a friend. You see, I didn't have a hard time swimming because I've been swimming a long time, but it was hard to get hard. Swimming against the current, stroke after stroke after stroke after stroke, you feel like you're going nowhere. But you know what I did? I went up to one of these little guys in the canoe. Can you see the little guy in the canoe? There was a lot of these guys floating around the canoe. And I went up to him and I said, can I just put my hand on the canoe for just 1 minute? 1 minute, I just need to get my breath. And he said, ma'am, what's your name? I thought that was a very strange question. Why would he want to know my name? But I guess if I need a breath, I said, my name's Pamela. Pamela, I just want you to know you're doing great. Really? I'm hanging on the end of your canoe. He goes, Pamela, my name's Brian, and I think you're doing great. I thought that was a very strange conversation in the middle of the water at 7:30 in the morning, but I made a friend. You make friends in unusual places. Yes, Brian became my friend. He said a very kind word to me and really gave me hope, because it really seemed like it wasn't really so great at that moment. It seemed like, well, it just wasn't that great. But I kept going. I kept going to the next buoy, this big, huge buoy that floats around out there. And I put my hand on it for a moment, and somebody else was splashing and splashing and splashing. And I kept my composure. I was calm. I just was calm. After Brian told me that I could do it, it just didn't seem that big a deal. So I was calm. And I told the guy who was struggling over there, I said, you could do it too. And pretty soon I was out of that current. I turned and then I was up the water. Now let me tell you, when you're doing an Ironman, they tell you to drink a lot of salt water. That's right, salt water, a lot of salt all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, I got a dose of salt water in that salted water, something I never would have gotten in Lake Michigan. The next thing I learned was wind. See, usually when it's windy where I come from, the trees look like they're windy. See, one tree looks windy and one tree doesn't look windy. See, so as I'm going down my 56 mile down the island, I'm just trucking along. I am just flying like unbelievable amount of speed. And I thought to myself, I am doing incredible. Well, when I turned around, it wasn't quite that way. But here I want to play this for you from Can you hear it?
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
So ladies and gentlemen, that was my experience. The thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. My Ironman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pamela. Thank you. Wow. All right. Our second speaker this evening is Christian Ramchurn. Most of you know Christian, but for anybody that might not know who he is, there are basically two people here that are really, well, it's not true. Three people here that are making this club go. One is our beloved president, Nick Lacani, who you heard from earlier. The second one is David Carr, who is everything technology, everything web counter, web mastering. And the third one is